The sky above Red Valley was the color of fire that evening, a wide western sunset spilling over golden hills and lonely windmills. Jacob Turner sat on the porch of his small ranch house, a letter in his hand and a storm in his heart. The paper trembled between his fingers. It was from the town council, a polite but firm reminder that if he didn't settle down soon, the bank would repossess half his land. "A man alone can't run a ranch of that size," they'd written. "You need help, a partner." But partners were hard to come by, and love wasn't something Jacob believed in anymore. He was 25, young for a rancher but already worn by loss. His father had died 2 years back, leaving him the land and debts he could barely pay. So when his neighbor, old Martha Green, mentioned a widowed woman looking for a home, a woman who could cook, clean, and keep the peace, Jacob swallowed his pride and said yes. Her name was Clara. She arrived on a dusty wagon 3 days later, wearing a faded blue dress and a bonnet that shaded her face. When she stepped down, Jacob realized she was older than he'd expected. Maybe mid-30s, with calm gray eyes and a hint of sadness that no smile could hide. He took off his hat. "Ma'am," he said awkwardly. "Mr. Turner," she replied, her voice soft but steady. "I'm told you needed a wife." He nodded, ashamed of how the words sounded in his throat. "That's right. I need help keepin' the place running." She looked around at the dry land, the weathered barn, the broken fence line. Then she smiled faintly. "Then we best get to work." There was no wedding dress, no preacher's blessing. Just 2 signatures at the town hall and a quiet supper afterward. Jacob didn't know what to say during the meal. He wasn't cruel, just unsure how to speak to someone who wasn't family or friend. Clara didn't seem to mind. She hummed while washing dishes, her movements calm and deliberate. There was something about the way she filled the quiet, not with chatter but with peace. In the weeks that followed, the ranch began to change. Clara brought order where chaos had reigned. The kitchen smelled of fresh bread every morning. Clean laundry fluttered on the line like white flags of truce. And for the first time since his father's passing, Jacob came home to lamplight instead of darkness. Still, he kept his distance. She slept in the spare room, and though they shared meals and chores, he rarely looked her in the eyes. She was kind, patient, but he couldn't shake the guilt that he'd married her for duty, not affection. One evening, while mending tack by the fire, Clara sat across from him knitting. The silence stretched between them, warm and steady. "Jacob," she said quietly, "you don't have to be ashamed of needing someone." He looked up, startled. "I'm not ashamed." "Yes, you are," she said, smiling gently. "You think taking a wife makes you weak. But it doesn't. It means you're human." He didn't answer, but her words settled in his chest like seeds waiting for rain. Spring came hard and early that year. The rains flooded the lower fields, and the cattle scattered across the valley. Jacob worked from dawn to midnight, shoulders burning, boots sinking in the mud. One night, as he struggled to pull a calf from a swollen creek, Clara appeared with a lantern. "You shouldn't be out here," he said, gritting his teeth. "And let you drown yourself?" She shot back, setting the light down. She grabbed the rope with both hands, mud soaking her dress. Together, they pulled until the calf stumbled free. By the time they got back, both were soaked and laughing. Truly laughing for the first time. Clara's hair clung to her cheeks, and Jacob caught himself staring. There was strength in her, the kind forged through loss and endurance. "Thank you," he said quietly. She met his gaze. "We're a team, Jacob. That's what marriage means." That night, lying in his bed, Jacob stared at the ceiling and realized something had shifted. The ranch didn't feel empty anymore. By summer, they were inseparable in work and routine. Clara's steady presence softened him, and her small acts of kindness wove themselves into his days. A cool drink after work, a word of encouragement, a hand on his shoulder when he doubted himself. He began to see beauty where he hadn't before. The way the wheat shimmered in morning light, the quiet hum of bees near the porch, the smile that curved her lips when she caught him watching. One evening, as the sun melted into the horizon, Jacob brought out his old fiddle. He hadn't played since his father died. Clara was shelling peas by the fire, her gray eyes warm with curiosity. "I didn't know you played," she said. "Used to, he murmured, tuning softly. Pa taught me. Then play something for him, she whispered. He did, and the notes filled the room like a prayer. When he finished, Clara was crying quietly. It's beautiful, she said. He'd be proud. And for the first time, Jacob reached out and took her hand. She didn't pull away. Autumn rolled in with golden leaves and long shadows. The harvest was good, the cattle healthy. The townfolk who once whispered about their strange marriage now nodded with respect. She's good for him, they'd say. That ranch has life again. Then came the letter, a notice from a distant cousin offering to buy the land. The price was generous, enough to start anew anywhere. Jacob read it aloud to Clara that night. We could sell. Move east. Start fresh. She smiled faintly. Would that make you happy? He hesitated. The thought of leaving the ranch, the place his father built, where Clara's laughter now lived, felt like tearing out roots. No, he admitted. This land's all I know. Then we stay, she said simply. Home isn't something you sell. Winter came sharp and early. One cold night Clara fell ill. Fever took her strength fast. Jacob sat by her side for days, feeding her broth, whispering words of comfort he'd never said aloud. When her fever broke, she was weak but smiling. You should have seen your face, she teased. I thought I'd have to bury you, not the other way around. He laughed, tears in his eyes. Don't you scare me like that again, Clara. She reached for his hand. I told you, Jacob. We're a team. From that day on, he stopped calling her ma'am and started calling her his wife. As the years passed, their bond deepened beyond words. Clara taught him patience, and he taught her how to dream again. Together, they planted trees, fixed fences, and built a life from the dust. When children came to visit from town, she'd bake pies and tell stories, her laughter filling every corner. And Jacob would stand on the porch, fiddle in hand, watching the light dance across her face, the woman who had given him everything he didn't know he needed. Years later, when Clara's hair turned silver and Jacob's hands grew rough with age, they still walked the ranch together each evening. The wheat fields shimmered like gold, the mountains stood eternal, and the world felt right again. One evening, as the sun sank low, Jacob turned to her. Clara, when I first married you, I thought I was doing my duty. But it was the best decision I ever made. She smiled, eyes glistening. And I thought I was too old to be loved again. Seems we were both wrong. He took her hand, rough and familiar, and together they watched the prairie burn orange with the setting sun. The wind whispered through the grass, carrying the sound of their laughter. Soft, steady, and everlasting.